Good morning. This is Norma for this week's Norma Talks. This has been an interesting week with lots of things happening all over the world. But as I am concerned, mostly with people who I work with as a profession. And what I find a lot, especially in my readings and then in the transformation work, is the different patterns that come up in relation to their lives. Now, I have said this several times, is that we are a soul that is infinite. It took me a long time to really understand that, but it's like it goes on forever. So right now, it's in this body that we're in. And we could be in this, we're going to stretch a little bit here. We could be in, parts of us could be in several other bodies at the same time. And I don't want to get it. It is explainable, but we won't explain that, because what I want to look at, when you come into this life that you are living, your soul will come in for various reasons. And as it comes in, then you become into the mother's womb. Now, sometimes the soul is not always totally joined in that journey of the womb experience. But what I found, and I found it enough times that I really see it as a pattern, that very often when the mother discovers that she's pregnant, the little embryo feels the upset or the fear or the anxiety that goes on with becoming pregnant. And because if you're not planning it, or you're single or whatever, it can be traumatic. And the little embryo, I'm not saying every embryo does this, but a lot do, all of a sudden make the decision that they're not wanted or they're not good enough based on or other past life or other life experiment. I need to take the past off because it could be in a future life, based on other experiences that you as a soul would have had. That, oh my goodness, I'm not good enough, I'm not wanted, or whatever that decision is. Once you have made a decision, it goes into the emotional body. That decision keeps getting recreated. And it's the patterns that we have in our lives that very often we can discover the decisions that we've made previously. You cannot live to, let's say, 30, and usually earlier, without looking back and seeing, oh, that feeling kept coming up here, coming up there, kept coming up there. And what will happen is that we tend to make the same decision over and over and over again. When I started first realizing this, I began to take a look at when a situation came up and I realized, oh, I've had this before. I would ask myself, what did I do then? Like last time, what did I do about that? And I do something different. Not always to my advantage, but at least I was taking a little more command. And I didn't know as much then about how to transform the decisions that we've made or how that they work. I just was getting a handle in it, and I knew that I was reacting to the situations. And as I was reacting, I was just replaying. It's like what do you call it? A big roller coaster going on down. I was just going around up and down and same old, same old. And that's why very often many people come to have readings with me or whatever. What we find, they can be in their 50s or the 60s or even like me in the 70s. And the patterns are still there of how they think, how they feel, how they respond to life. Now, the unfortunate thing from my perspective is, if you haven't done any transformation, quote unquote, healing work, what ends up happening is that you will go to the next adventure somewhere in the world and recreate very similar things. But I need to talk about timelines a little bit here. One of the ways I describe, and I'm smiling because I'm really having to redraw things now because I'm doing a workshop on the 19th around past life regression, where you explain it and then you get to regress to see yourself in other lives. And in the drawing of how I used to explain this, I didn't realize at the time I was explaining timelines. I want you to think of a cartwheel, excuse me, a cartwheel. It's got a hub and spokes. And what I would draw on one spoke was different time zones. Like it could be a 5 BC, it could be a 10 AD, and then we could even go in the future, say 2130. Well, we're in that now. This is when I used to do them years ago. We'll say 3356. That could be one spoke. The timeline of that, and now each spoke would have different timelines, and then the patterns would join in. You could see that some of the patterns would cross over a little bit. Now, one of the elements that is really, really, really important is that you need to be aware of where you are and what you're doing, how life works. And that means you've got to become conscious. It's not just a reaction as you go through things. It's like you become consciously aware of who, what, where you are. And it all begins because, according to me, emotional planet, how you feel. Because from the feeling, you will make a new decision. And sometimes we have our decisions layered, and it's like being able to move through those. So number one is to recognize you have a pattern. And that is only by observation of how, what, when, and where things are actually happening. Number two, once you begin to see that there's a pattern, you figure out how you're responding. Like what are you deciding in that moment? How have you normally reacted? And what is it that you need to shift within you? Now, this is where people often go to different therapists and different other people who do transformation work like myself to help move and shift those things more easily. But the thing is, if you do not make a conscious decision to make a difference to your pattern, the odds are you will just revert back. Interesting, isn't it? Also, another aspect I found is the subconscious mind is big and deep. And I know people who have worked with me, and that's all I can go by on this, is that as we have cleared, as I call it, it's like clearing the rocks out, as we clear the different levels, it's not something you can do a deep dive in right away, I found, because it's just too much. So it's like clearing as we go through the levels. And then finally, what we do is start finding, you might say, the roots of many of these things in the subconscious. But I very, very seldom and I've done a lot of these now, very seldom are we able to go that deep right away. Now, what happens for me is a lot of people come to see me have already done quite a bit of work. And I can tell pretty well right away. And then we go from there and go further deeper. But it's really interesting when you go deep, deep into the subconscious, how these little, and they're tiny, it seems tiny at that point anyway, little decisions, little programs, they're programs, but they're created by decisions, but they're programs. And in the program, it's just like a program that you have in your computer that, could be an accounting program, it could be a word processing program, it could be a mathematical or whatever program. That program can take up just a little bit of space, but it can be really effective when you have a certain emotional reaction. When you have the emotional, you will fire that program in place, and before you know it, for me, something would come out of my mouth. Why am I saying that? Because I was very observing many years. I really did a lot of observing of what I said or did in order to figure me out, because I didn't know who I was when I was younger. And when I began to realize that, okay, what's triggering that? Because that's not my consciousness. I'm not consciously thinking this is what I'm going to say, because the words would blurb out. And what I would find that the pattern would be there. It could be somebody had, I can't even remember now, to be honest, because most of them are all transformed. Occasionally I see a few little planet patterns flying around, but it's like an awareness of what gets triggered. Now, what another tendency we have to do, what we've done, I think, if we may become aware of that, we avoid it. We avoid the situation that creates those responses that we don't particularly like. Well, that could work in this life, but next life you'll probably face it again, because you've still got it as part of the big pattern of who you are, what makes up your essence. Or we're going to call it a soul for the moment, but it's like the essence of you. And it's almost like when you're choosing your body, when you're choosing the life that you want to be in, it's like you kind of look at everything. I know I chose this particular life, and I'm just going to, was because I had experience with my father. And so consequently, I had experiences with my father and that I needed to resolve. And then my mother was a very loving person. And also I was just coming out of in a sort of time when I had just gone through a prisoner of war in Germany. So I had been killed. And so I was looking kind of for a safe haven. And my father and I had a life in ancient Egypt, actually. How did I know this? Because I did past life regression work for many years, and I found that's where our connection was. But I knew him, and there was a little bit of unresolved issues in there. And so I needed to resolve those. And I feel in this that I did resolve those and feel comfortable with whatever his vibration is. And because he's being departed for a number of years now. In fact, come to think of it, I'm not that much younger than when he left. So it's getting to that point. But it's like, what I want you to understand is that you just think you're living and going, but actually you're full of patterns. You're full of reactions. You're full of things. Even what's been going on in our world in the last few years with all the fear and all the anxiety. What do we do with that fear? Some people are so fearful that they're just, they don't going to come out of their houses. Unfortunately, that's been generated, I guess, but it's like, where's the faith and where's the belief in you as a human of being able to deal with whatever's going on out there? Safety is not necessarily shutting down and going away behind closed doors or having certain members leave your environment. That avoidance is not the answer, because guaranteed at some point that's all going to come crashing in. If not this life, another time period. Another time period. Maybe you have done this before. Maybe all the people that are judgmental and resistance of change, just want so-called safety, maybe they've been through this before, because the world, as we know it, has been through many, many crises, number one, but there are other time periods where we don't know too much about. And so consequently, what are we really comprised of? What are the patterns that are in our lives? What are the patterns that are ruling our lives? I know some people, if they can't get their own way, I mean, maybe they were spoiled as children. I don't know. I was fairly spoiled, actually, in some respects. But I know it's like some people really just they don't learn boundaries because they're given everything. So when they get older and they can't get their own way, they have they lose it, because they just can't comprehend that something isn't the way they want it. There's other people that are so fearful, often that's part of their upbringing, that are so fearful they don't know how to even ask for anything that they want. I know for myself, I grew up with what you would call an inferiority complex. And I was basically told at 15 to go to work, and I didn't want to. I wanted to be educated. Coming to Canada helped that because it was easy for me to get an education at night school and other things. And so I was able to do that. I had to leave my own country to get that because otherwise I would have been placed in a position at that point. I'm not saying that's like that now, where there didn't seem to be any avenue that I could find where I could go and get more education on my own for lots of reasons. But we all have challenges. Some of us have health challenges. Some of us have relationship challenges. Some of us have everything. Some of us just go along. It's very easy. It's like the old saying, what runs off the water runs off like a duck's back. It's like nothing touches them. And that's who they are. And that's what they do. Maybe they're just here to have a good time. We don't know what another person's patterns are unless we're really up in front of it. And when we go, oh, because our two patterns will interrelate. Some people you meet and you just love and it works and communicate and you just really care and it's fine, it works. Others you meet and it's kind of, rubbing against each other. Pattern programming. It's terrible to think that we are all programs. I know when I first ran into a computer, and I was one of the first people to get a computer, actually, I took a look at what was happening. I even studied a little bit when I was in college. Well, I was an adult in college. But first time I looked at it, I went, oh, they have recreated the subconscious mind. I want you to realize that. The computer shows how you work, how you as a person, but it does not have one component. It does not have emotion. A. They may try and emulate that. I think they're working on that. But B, it doesn't have a soul. It doesn't have that part of us that works and connects to the universal love force, as I call it, whether you call it God, Allah, whatever, doesn't matter. There is a force that strengthens who we are on the inside. Computers do not have that. And I cannot see, no matter how they try, that they can connect to that. They will tell you they do. I'm sure of that. But that connection is so individual. It is so supportive of who we are in our creations. It allows us to create. It allows us to become. And so that when we go to leave this life, we're taking with us a tremendous sense of fulfillment that possibly we've been there in other lifetimes. Who knows? Maybe it's going to affect all that. I find that the effect that we can have in other lifetimes as we grow in our spiritual, philosophical understanding. That's the joy. That's the beauty of life. And it all begins by recognizing your patterns. Just like we can press a couple of keys and what is it? I know, Shift, Delete, Alt, I think it is. And we can we can close our computer down. How do we shut down? We go to sleep, yeah. But then we dream. Computers don't dream. So what I'm saying is that we are run by a lot of programs that we have in our lives. They're automatic. People like myself are fairly time. We look at our clocks a lot. We want to know what time it is. I schedule myself a lot because I have clients coming at a certain time. I want to prepare. I've been doing bookkeeping, finishing up my bookkeeping for the year. I've got that to do. So I'm very timely, and I know that. In the meantime, I can waste a lot of time too. So take a look at your patterns. And then if you're really interested in self-growth, go deeper. Not only the pattern, what triggers them? What triggers this pattern? Because we are not a robot, believe me. We have different scenarios for different things. And the thing is, very often, the things that make us uncomfortable, we try and stay away from. But it's by being uncomfortable, we get to discover the breadth of us, the depth of us, the who of us. Who, yeah, who, that kind of sounds familiar. Who are we really? We are who we are and how we want to represent ourselves. But I really would like to see you begin to look at your patterns. That's what I look at with readings for myself, for others, to see what am I exhibiting here? What am I doing? Am I overthinking? Am I worrying? Am I emotional? Am I denying? Am I hurt? And also, it's not that way. Am I hurt? How am I handling my hurt? How am I handling the disappointments in life? What am I doing with my world? Am I going after what I want? All those questions are all held within your own programming, which are exhibited into the patterns of our lives. So that concludes my talk for today. I've just got written down here, patterns in our lives. So we never quite know where each talk is going to take us. But I also want to mention, thank you for those that are tuning in on Monday nights for my prayer mental mind treatments. Thank you for the Sunday thought comments, a lot of more comments on Sunday thoughts than most things. So please remember, share, like, and subscribe. I would appreciate that. And remember that little bell because when things come up, it'll tell you when I'm live on or when my programs are out. Bless you. Have a great week. Enjoy. Bye for now.